If you're into photography and you are looking for a camera right now, then this video is for you, because in today's video I want to show you my favorite cameras in every price category, all the way from $300 to $2,000. So let's dive right in. Hello my friends, and welcome to this video today. So in this video, as stated in the beginning, I want to show you my favorite cameras, and I think in every category we will find some great value for money cameras, and this is my personal list. It is based on my own experience, because I have either owned these cameras myself, I borrowed them from friends who had them, or I heard customers talk about that camera positively multiple times when I worked part-time in a camera retail store a few years back. So this list is not just basically a Google search, but my honest and own opinion. But what that also means is that this list is not necessarily complete. So if you have cameras that you think are great value for money options in either of these categories, let me know them in the comments below. I'm genuinely interested in that. But without further ado, let's get started with category number one. So in category number one, all these cameras are used cameras, and they are available all the way from $300 to around $500. So we are talking about, basically the entry and value budget camera market here. So the first camera I want to talk about in this category is the Sony a7 II. I used and owned the Sony a7 II for multiple years, and I still use the Sony a7R II, and it is just a great camera. They are very well built, very reliable. They come with a full frame sensor and in-body image stabilization, which is pretty rare at this price point, I feel like, and you can get them super cheap on the used market right now. So the a7 II is always a recommendation when you want to get into the world of full frame photography. It comes with the Sony E-mount, and you have a huge variety of lenses there from third-party manufacturers and also older and used lenses that are not so expensive. The next camera is a DSLR, but also with a full frame sensor, and I'm talking about a Canon EOS 6D Mark I. This camera also only available used because it is quite old. You have a bulkier and heavier body, but a lot of people enjoy the DSLR feeling with the camera because, the haptics is arguably better. It lies better in the hand because it's not so small. And the 6D, as I said, has a full frame sensor, 20 megapixels, the Canon color science, which is known to be exceptionally well, and it's also a great value for money camera, I believe. So the 6D, definitely a recommendation here. The next camera is also from Canon, but it's not a full frame. It is an APS-C size camera, but for a lot of people who just want to start out with photography, APS-C might be the right choice. And I'm talking about a Canon EOS R100. In contrast to the 6D, the R100 got the newer Canon EF lens system. So this means basically that you can adapt all the new lenses from Canon with this camera, which come in pretty handy. So it is way more future-proof basically. Also, it got a great autofocus, as it's very lightweight and compact because it is a mirrorless camera. And because of that, it is really well suited for traveling, for example. So I believe the R100 is a great value option for beginners, or if you want to step up maybe from an older camera. The next camera is a Sony camera again, and it is the Sony a6000. This is quite a few years old, and the a6000 series basically is the APS-C version of Sony mirrorless cameras. It is a great series of cameras. The a6000 is quite a few years old, but still pretty reliable, pretty good, and it is super compact. It got an extremely fast autofocus, I feel like, for the age of the camera at least. And again, it comes with the Sony E-mount, so with a massive lens system. So I believe this is still a very strong starter camera in 2025, and you can get them super cheap on the used market. So let's get to category number two, and we are talking about cameras that are available all the way from $600 to around $800. And obviously, as you've seen, these are always categories of prices because a lot of these cameras are not available new anymore. So basically, you always have to look it up on the internet. Maybe on eBay they are a little bit cheaper than, for example, from a certified dealer and stuff like that. So as I said, this is just a rough estimation on the price range here. So we left with the a6000 and now we have the Sony a6400 in this category, which is basically a newer model of the a6000. And obviously it has some improvements over the older generations. For example, it has great video capabilities. So if you are a hybrid shooter and you're searching for a camera for travel activities, for vlogging activities, for example, then this might be the camera for you if you are on a budget, because again, it is super compact, lightweight, and you have the great photo and you have the great video possibilities. You have great autofocus. You got a flip screen with it, I believe, so you can see yourself. And as I said, also a big recommendation from me, the a6400. Next up, we have a new manufacturer, and I'm talking about the Fujifilm X-T3. The X-T3 also comes with an APS-C size sensor, but a lot of people love the Fujifilm cameras because of their great film emulation capabilities. You really got this nostalgic feeling right out of the camera. You can choose from different film stock and the camera will emulate the film stock for you, which is pretty amazing. I love these things. I haven't owned one myself, sadly, but I definitely want to get one. Borrowed one a couple of months ago and yeah, tried it out, and I was really fascinated by this camera, and I heard a lot of good things from customers that bought these cameras. So again, a great camera for travel activities because it is again quite compact and lightweight. It's also pretty good for video, at least I heard that, and you got an amazing haptic with this camera because these cameras have this nostalgic feeling to it because they had the manual dials basically, so it feels like you are really shooting on an old analog camera but with all the modern features like modern autofocus systems. So a great camera here and a strong recommendation from my side. Next up in this category is the Panasonic Lumix G9 II, and this camera is the first one in this whole list that comes with a micro four thirds sensor, so even smaller than the APS-C size sensor. And this comes with a few limitations, but it also comes with a lot of advantages. The G9 II has, for example, an amazing in-body image stabilization and a great burst mode. So this camera is perfectly suited if you want to shoot, for example, wildlife or sports or stuff like that. So if you're okay with a little bit of a smaller sensor size, this camera might be a great choice for you. Next up in this list might be my favorite from this category. It is a full frame camera again, and I'm talking about the A7 III. So the successor from the A7 II in the last category I talked about. However, the A7 III comes with quite a few improvements. For example, the low light capability is a lot better. I feel like you got a step up in dynamic range, pretty good video capabilities as well. All the benefits from the A7 II obviously. And when it comes to price over performance, this camera might be one of the best on the list here. So let's talk about the next category, and here we start to have new cameras on the list. And I want to start out with a little bit of a controversial camera, I feel like, because I talked about that one a few weeks ago. I'm talking about a Nikon Z5, and you can get them new for around $900 to $1,000, and it is Nikon's entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera basically. And I have used this camera, I loved it, but I read a comment under one of my last videos where someone basically stated that it's crap because of the slow sensor readout speed, and he's not totally wrong there. Slow sensor readout speeds can cause, for example, rolling shutter effects and stuff like that. So if you want to shoot really fast moving objects, this might be not the perfect camera for you. However, I use this camera, for example, for nature and landscape photography, and I just loved it. I hadn't any issues with it, and I feel like for $1,000 or $900 new, this is a great value for money. Again, if you buy a camera new, you got all the warranties with it, and this is also something that you might want to consider. So still a strong recommendation here for the Z5. So next up we have the Canon R8, and this one you will have to buy used if you want to stay in the category of prices here. The R8 is one of the only cameras that I have never used myself, but I have heard a lot of people talking about this camera. I heard about them talking about the excellent autofocus system, again the great Canon color science, the compact size of this camera. So I just wanted to have this camera in the list because I feel like you are missing out if you don't know of this camera. Next one, a camera again that you can buy new and still stay into this category of pricing. I'm talking about the Panasonic S5 II. What really stands out with these cameras is the in-body image stabilization. It is just amazing. For example, for videos, this is also a great video camera, I feel like, but you can obviously take amazing photos with it as well. You got excellent color, excellent dynamic range, and this is just a great bang for your buck. And as with a lot of cameras in this list, it might not be the best in every category, but overall you will get an amazing package for a relatively low price. This is why I definitely recommend the Panasonic S5 II. The last camera in this category is a Sony camera again, and I'm talking about a Sony A7C. The A7C is basically a more compact version of the normal Sony mirrorless cameras, like for example the A7 series. So this camera is great for travel activities. You still got the amazing sensor. I believe it is the same sensor as in the A7 III, but it is a newer camera, so you have some software improvements. So this camera also a big recommendation. Let's now talk about the pricier cameras, all the way up to $2,000. And this is a category where we get into a professional regime of things basically. For example, the first camera on this list, the Sony A7 IV, I use this camera a lot for my professional work life. For example, for wedding photography, because the A7 IV, it will set you back, as I said, around $2,000, but it is a super capable camera. You got an amazing autofocus system. I really love the autofocus. You got 33 megapixel full frame sensor, which is the sweet spot, so that you have a good burst mode, and the buffer of the camera is not full super fast, but you still got a lot of details in your photos as well. So the A7 IV is an absolute beast of a camera. The A7 V will be launched in a few weeks to months, I believe, so you might want to wait if you really want to buy a A7 IV until this camera is released, because then most likely the prices for the A7 IV will drop even lower and you got a basically even better value for money. So a big recommendation here. A7 IV, one of my favorite cameras on this whole list. Another camera in this category would be the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. Also a full frame camera with a great autofocus system. Great for weddings. Again, I know a lot of wedding photographers who use the R6 II. Same for events and portraits basically. Low light performance is excellent. So also a great value for money camera basically, because you got a basically professional camera here, but not for the price of a super new professional camera. If you know what I mean, if this does make sense, I don't know. Next up on this list is a Leica camera, and you might not believe this because we all know Leica from like $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 plus cameras, but you will find some Leica cameras in this category. And I'm talking about a Leica SL2S. So the SL2S, I had my hands on these cameras. It was amazingly well built, basically the highest build quality of all the cameras in this list. However, I have not shot this camera, and the things I say here are based on other people's experiences, so basically for every camera on this list this matters, but you might want to look this up again here on YouTube or on the internet and read a lot more before buying something like that. So basically what I heard is that, again, you know, you have the Leica colors with this camera, the famous Leica colors that are super beautiful, and you just have a premium product here, and you can really feel that. And as I said, I had my hands on this camera. It is built extremely well. So if you're really into Leica, you might want to consider taking a closer look at the SL2S. So the last one in this list is a Nikon camera. I'm talking about the Nikon Z7 II. Another camera that would fall in the category entry professional, I guess. It has a high resolution, so it's amazing for landscape photography. The Sony A7 R4 would fall in the same category, and the Sony A7 R4 I used myself, but I feel like I had so many Sony cameras in this list that I want to choose a different camera here. That is also great. Again, I am into landscape and nature photography, and I know a lot of landscape photographers who use this exact camera, and they are super happy with it. So this is a strong recommendation as well, that you can take a closer look into the Nikon Z7 II. Okay, so here we are basically at the end of the list. Obviously, there are a lot of cameras that are way more expensive, that are also recommendable. However, I feel like if you want to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a camera, you don't need a silly guy on the internet like me talking to you here, because you exactly know what you want. You might be a professional and you will, as I said, not need a YouTube video like this. However, I have one more category, and I call this honorable mentions, because these cameras are not for everybody, but I just happen to love them so much. The first camera on this list would be a Canon 5D. The 5D Mark I talked about this camera in other videos as well. You can get them super cheap. It is a full frame camera, but it is 20 years old, and yeah, you don't have a lot of modern features with it, but still it is an absolute pleasure to operate this camera. You can get them super cheap, like for around 100 to 150 bucks. If you're a little bit lucky, you will find some 5D Mark Is on eBay, and you can get a used lens for it as well that might set you back around $80. So if you're really lucky, you will have a full setup, body and lens, full frame for less than 200 bucks, which is just insane. It might be the most camera you get for your dollar that ever happened to exist, I feel like. So just an amazing piece there. Same goes for the 5D Mark II and Mark III. They are a little bit more expensive, obviously, because they are newer, but still great cameras, and you can get amazing deals on them. Another camera that I fell in love with is the Pentax K1, and I also talked about this camera in a recent video. You can get them used for around $800 to $900, and they are just amazingly well built. They are super sturdy, they feel like a tank, you have great resolution, you have amazing sharpness, and yeah, the Pentax K1 is just a great camera, I feel like, and I love this thing. So with that said, we come to the end of today's video now. And again, if you have some recommendations for cameras, feel free to let me know them in the comments below. I'm really interested in that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I could help you a little bit. Obviously, this is not a full guide on which camera you should buy. This is just a brief overview on what's out there and what I think is worth the money in 2025. If you've watched this video so far, thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a ton of other videos about photography related topics over on my YouTube channel, so feel free to check them out as well. But for now, I wish you a great day, and I wish you a great week, and I hope I see you in next week's video. So see you then, and goodbye.